These strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater.
America, 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 fuck yeah, coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah, America, fuck yeah, freedom is the only way, yeah. Terrorists, your game is through, 'cause now you have to answer to America, fuck yeah, so lick my blood and suck on my balls, America, fuck yeah, what you gonna do when we come for you now? It's the dream that we all share, it's the hope for tomorrow, fuck yeah, McDonald's, fuck yeah, Walmart, fuck yeah, Gap, fuck yeah, baseball, fuck yeah, NFL, fuck yeah.
At the beginning of this century, Operation Midnight Hammer would have been a work of science fiction. Half a century before that, when we were having to conquer the entire South Pacific to get close enough to drop bombs on Japan, it would have been indistinguishable from magic. The idea that you could launch an aircraft from Missouri, drop any ordnance load on any target anywhere in the world, refuel in the air on the way there and the way back, and land back home in Missouri scarcely 36 hours later. The point being, not enough of our people are sufficiently in awe of our martial prowess and capabilities, and moreover, not enough of our people sufficiently appreciate the fact that only one country in the history of the world has those capabilities, and that country is us, and we want it to stay that way. And what's the other thing that sets us apart from the world's previous imperial hegemons, if you want to use that term? We spend trillions of dollars and decades of research and development trying to ensure that we never actually have to use the best weapons we have. It is Tuesday, 24 June. This is Curmudgeon's Corner. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where nobody is busting my bunker unless I get dinner and a movie first. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner. Let's talk about the mission they were going to call Operation Giant Buttfuck, but they decided that was a little bit too on the nose, so they settled on the much more subtle Operation Midnight Hammer. But it's a refreshing change of pace, I think, after all those decades of code names that sounded like they were focus grouped to be as inoffensive as possible. You know, Operation Steady Resolve, Operation Righteous Freedom, Operation Spread Democracy, all that kind of shit. They just don't hit home the same way that a Midnight Hammer does. And speaking of the proverbial Midnight Hammer, back during the second invasion of Iraq in 2003, we had a device that was known as a bunker buster, and it was a big part of our strategic plan because in that first round of aerial attacks, it was supposed to be a decapitation strike in addition to an attempt to degrade the enemy's ability to effectively counterattack. We thought we had pretty good intelligence on the location of Saddam Hussein and the location of Uday and Qusay Hussein. The better part of the military leadership, we thought we knew where they were too, so if these bunker busters work the way they have been advertised to work, we can cut the head off of this snake in the first few hours and this thing will be a freaking cakewalk. But they didn't work as advertised. Not even close, really. In the event, it wound up being more of a bunker scratcher than a bunker buster, but then recent experience ought to have told us not to place as much faith in that particular weapon system as we wound up placing in it, because we tried dropping it a couple years prior during the Battle of Tora Bora, and it didn't work very well there either. In fact, it worked so poorly that we started using the old trusty Vietnam-era daisy cutters instead. You remember the big fat bastard with the pallet and the parachute? They push him out the back of the C-130, and while it did make a very big, very impressive noise, it didn't actually kill any bad guys that we know about. So, based on these real-world failures, by the time we get to the summer of 2004, the Defense Department says it would seem we've got a problem here. We don't have a conventional weapon system that can reliably destroy a hardened underground installation, and we need to have one of those because we can't have tactical nukes be our only option for that type of mission profile. So they send out a request for proposal. They said, all right, defense contractors, we need a 30,000-pound precision-guided munition that's deliverable using our existing aircraft that will actually bust bunkers when we need bunkers busted. And that's how we got the GBU 57A and B massive ordnance penetrator, or MOP to its friends. And what better weapon system to use in a mission called Operation Midnight Hammer than a bomb named the Massive Penetrator? And it's fun to watch the DoD briefing where the generals are talking about how many mops we dropped on the enemy, or maybe I'm the only one who finds that amusing. It's possible. And there were a lot of people last week, idiots I believe they're called, who said, well, if we've got a bomb that can get the job done, then let's just give it to the Israelis and they can drop it themselves and we won't have to. Yeah, that's not how any of this works, guys. These are not pickup trucks. This isn't a matter of, well, sure, I can move that dresser for you. I've got enough room in the back there. This is a weapon system that is untested in combat, built by Boeing to be deliverable by strategic bombers, also built by Boeing. And pro tip, Israel doesn't have any strategic bombers, and even if they did, they would have no air crew who are trained to deliver the thing. And now, this week, we've got a separate group of idiots, Democrat members of Congress, I believe they're called, who know no limit of the extent to which they are willing to insult your intelligence, because the big talking point currently, one of them at least, is that Trump is not allowed to do any military anything without first getting a declaration of war from Congress, and the fact that he didn't do that means, drum roll please, yep, it's impeachment time. And if you're a person who hasn't been living under a rock for the last 80 years, that probably makes you think, wait a minute, Congress hasn't declared war on anybody since December of 1941, but every president since then, all 13 of them, have applied military force in various ways, in various places, for various reasons, without any go-ahead from Congress. The Korean War, the Vietnam War, both of the Iraq wars, the Afghanistan wars, none of those was undertaken with any prior congressional authorization. And none of the presidents got impeached for it. And nobody ever said they should be. Well, except for George W. Bush. A few people did say that. But that's not important now. It's almost like you guys just want to impeach Trump because Trump did a thing, and it doesn't matter what the thing is. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, some of you wanted to impeach him for sending the National Guard into the Enchilada Intifada. It's almost like you're a bunch of idiot wind-up dolls that only know how to shriek impeach Trump when you pull the string. And the other big idiotic talking point that's going around currently is the one that says, Trump is getting us into another forever war. Our troops are going to be in Iran for decades now. And again, in order to promulgate that talking point, you have to have a very dim view of the intelligence and the collective memory of the American people. The American people who are fully capable of remembering Libya in 86, Kosovo in 91, Libya again in 2011, Syria in 2011, just to name a few, of the many, many times since the end of the Second World War when American presidents have launched targeted airstrikes that were never followed up with troops on the ground. Why? Because regime change was not our strategic objective in any of those cases, just as it is not currently in Iran. If the Iranian people are desirous of regime change, if they decide that 45 years of living under the thumb of terrorist gangsters is just about long enough, they will need to handle that themselves. Donald Trump is not a fan of regime change wars. He never has been. Even when it was fashionable to be a fan of such things, he still wasn't. No man has ever been more consistent about a thing than Trump has been about that. And an airstrike is not an invasion. In this case, the airstrike was consistent with long-standing bipartisan U.S. policy and UN policy, for that matter, that says Iran may not possess nuclear weapons or the means of building them. For the Biden-Obama administration, enforcing that policy meant sending giant pallets of cash to the Ayatollah and taking his word for it that he totally doesn't want to build a bomb and he's totally not using that money to finance world terrorism. It's kind of like Reagan's policy of trust but verify, except without the verify part. In other words, Democrats tend to view Iran's nuclear program the same way they viewed voter registration. It is fine. We'll take your word for it. Put that ID away. Now, Trump's philosophy on those questions is don't trust and remove the need for verification through the targeted application of high explosives. And while it does border on the realm of science fiction that we have the ordnance and the delivery platforms to carry off such a mission, the guys in the B-2s delivering the payload, they are just the capstone on that pyramid, my friend. There is a hell of a lot of a big, impressive logistical dance involving thousands of personnel that has to take place in order to make the thing possible. And it wasn't just an Air Force thing either. The first salvo actually came in the form of 30 Tomahawks launched from one of our Ohio-class ballistic missile subs. Her identity has not been publicly disclosed, but it seems pretty overwhelmingly likely that it was USS Georgia, and her mission was to clear the road of any Iranian anti-aircraft sites that might cause trouble as the 7 B-2s were proceeding toward the 3 targets. The Iranian Air Force wasn't really much of a concern since the Israelis have already had total air supremacy since well over a week ago, which took them, 7.5 minutes to achieve? I'm telling you right now, in terms of being able to consistently punch above their weight, pound for pound, the Israelis are the mightiest military in world history. And between the aerial refueling and the fighter cover and advanced recon and such, there were a total of 125 aircraft that were brought to bear in this operation from a dozen installations on 4 different continents. So the next time your hardcore isolationist friend flippantly remarks that we ought to pull back and abandon all of our overseas military bases, gently remind him that without those, we can't do stuff like this. And sometimes stuff like this needs to be done. And the reality is, as much as we would all like it to be otherwise, sometimes stuff like this really does need to be done. And in a world where there is only one country that can pull off operations like this, thank God that country is us, because we are way the hell preferable to any of the potential alternatives. I'm done, that's all I got. See you next time. Get off my lawn.